Is Daniel Dubois overlooking Joseph Parker? Yeah. So, Brian, what's your thoughts?
I think he is ambitious. I think he wants to be the overall champion. He wants that undisputed fight with Usyk. He's made that clear. I do think he's overlooking him a little bit. And I think that could be dangerous. Like, when you look at Parker's form is probably second only to Daniel Dubois. Obviously, Usyk's champ, he's gold. But Dubois is probably the silver and Parker's the bronze right now, you know what I mean? In terms of form, when you look at what they've been doing in their previous fights, yeah, Dubois looked unbelievable against Hrgovic and Anthony Joshua, but Parker, in those fights against Wilder and Zhang, also looked unbelievable. And the thing that he has that a lot of people, I think, haven't had against Dubois' power lately is the resilience to keep coming back from those punishing shots and to stick it on Dubois as well. So that's where I think we're going to get different questions asked of Daniel Dubois in this fight.
Well, this is it. Well, I'm going to jump straight in the deep end and go straight to when Daniel Dubois jumped straight in the ring against Usyk versus Fury at the end of the fight. And a lot of people are saying, he had a fight coming up. Why was he trying to almost sell another fight when he hasn't fought Joseph Parker yet, which to me as a fighter, when you've got a fight coming up, the only thing you need to be focusing on is the fight in front of you. So a lot of people are thinking he's just overlooked him like it's a full-gone conclusion that he's going to beat Parker. But as you've mentioned, both guys are on great form. And I think the problem is, Daniel Dubois beating AJ, it sent his confidence absolutely through the roof.
Has it done it too much, though?
I think he thinks he's invincible right now. And, in the past, we've discussed the fact that he's not an overthinker. And I do think that's a superpower because he doesn't approach a fight like most people like myself. I'm a massive overthinker and I start analysing every detail. But for him, it's just tunnel vision. And then you put on top of that, beating AJ, who's been the man, has been the main man in the heavyweight division for so long, and a guy he's looked up to because when they were both on the GB squad, AJ was up here and Daniel was looking up, wanting to be in his position. And then he's went and, he's the Kingslayer. He's went and beaten him. So now
it's how he beat him as well, isn't it? Like, when you destroy someone who everyone has up on a pedestal like that in such convincing fashion, it makes you think, you're unbeatable at that point. And that's a great thing, but it can... I remember when Conor McGregor knocked out Jose Aldo in the first 13 seconds, right? This is a guy who'd never been beaten for 10 years. And everyone will say, we're mentioning Conor McGregor again. But when he did that, he thought he was unbeatable. The very next fight, he went in there with Nate Diaz for the first time. And he hit Nate Diaz with everything but the kitchen sink. And Nate Diaz was still there. And you could see that look of, fuck, I never thought this was going to happen. And if he does that with Joseph Parker, who, as I've said, has been shown massive resilience against Zhilei Zhang, getting knocked down twice, still getting the win, and Parker's still there, I'm not saying Dubois is going to fold because he's got a great engine on him, but he might be like, I wasn't anticipating this. And that's where, as we've seen in the past, where Anthony Joshua went in Andy Ruiz fight, when you're not anticipating a war and you've got a war, sometimes it can come sort of crumbling down.
And, well, you've nailed it there because I think, was it Andy Lee in the face-off he mentioned about, against Usyk, he went down off a jab, and they kind of had a bit of back and forth. And I have got a little bit of a feeling that Dubois is a bit of an on-top fighter. And, every time that things have got a little bit tough, I don't want to call him a quitter because, if we go back to the Joe Joyce fight, he was very young. I think he was maybe 22, was he?
He was so young to be fighting a guy with that much experience.
Yeah, and as a heavyweight, 22 is, very, very young. And I was on the GB squad with Joe Joyce. He was my roommate. And that guy is an extremely tough guy. And
that was him in his prime as well.
I was just going to mention that's him at his best. And he's took a lot of punishment since then, and he's not quite the same fighter. And even in the amateurs, Joe Joyce was taking a lot of punishment. But he's hard as nails, the guy. And,
but he could keep on coming. That's the quality he had as well. And Parker's shown a lot of that similar quality lately.
Exactly. So I think that's one worry that, if things don't go his way after destroying AJ, I think the fact that AJ, I think that was probably the worst version of AJ. And I don't want to take anything away from his performance because, he done exactly what he said he was going to do. But AJ was terrible. AJ was terrible.
Technically, though, and that's the thing, is we've always had the questions about AJ's resilience of coming back from being hurt really badly.
Yeah.
That wasn't new. But what was new was how technically his hands were so low. He was so slow to move back and adjust with his feet. There was so much going wrong there. And those things, Joseph Parker is not going to make those same mistakes. It's not going to be, you might knock him out, you might chin him, that could easily happen, but it's not going to be quite as there for you in the same way, and it's going to be harder, in my opinion.
100%. One thing with Joseph Parker, you know, he's very experienced as a professional. He's had more professional boxing matches, I think, than Daniel, but he's very cagey. It's the subtle things that he does in his fights, like, you know, the way he feints. He's a pretty good defensively. I know he got dropped a couple of times off Big Bang Zhang, but, you know, he's a monster and he's 6'6", and I think...
The reason those shots didn't hurt him as bad as what they've killed other people, the way Deontay Wilder got flatlined, is when he's taking shots, he doesn't really take them that flush.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that second knockdown was like over the top of the head. It didn't really connect because he does know how to maneuver out of the way of danger. He does know how to protect himself, like you're saying, mate.
I think one of the great things about Joseph Parker, like I say, is his feints, but also his movement, because a lot of the guys that Daniel Dubois, you know, had success, let's go Hrgovic, let's go Jarrell Miller. Jamel Miller was there to be hit. He was walking towards him, and then you've got Hrgovic, who great fighter, great boxer. I'm not taking anything away from him, but he was kind of there. His feet aren't the quickest.
He wasn't ready for a war that day.
No, I think,
and ironically, a war showed up for him, and his legs. He clearly wasn't as fit as Dubois. That's one thing we've got to give Dubois credit for. The fitness of a lad that big, that strong. He could keep coming all night, and that's something that Parker needs to be wary of, because against Zhang, he knew Zhang wasn't going to be as fit as him. Against Deontay Wilder, he knew, I can put you on the back foot and you won't really have the answers for it. There was clear paths to victory. Yeah. I don't think the Dubois fight is as clear a path to victory for Parker, in that, you know, he's looked fucking pretty indestructible recently, and yeah, he has lost against Usyk, greatest fighter of his generation, and the Joyce fight was a young version of Dubois. So
yeah, well, I think you know, I think both guys really are going to be facing something that they haven't faced before, in the sense of, like you've just said there, you know, Joseph Parker, Zhang wasn't really, he's slow on his feet. I mean, in that fight, he was just waiting. He was waiting. Yes, he's an absolute powerhouse and technically sound, but he wasn't exactly putting the pressure that Daniel Dubois bring. And, you know, opposite of that, the same for Joseph Parker, isn't going to be there to be hit. And, you know, again, someone like Usyk, who's got great feet, you know, Daniel did struggle. So I think they're both going to bring elements that they're both going to find extremely difficult.
He really struggled against Usyk. The narrative shift on the Usyk-Dubois fight has been amazing in British media, where they're like, oh, he was robbed, he should have won. It's like, can we just clear something up here? Daniel Dubois didn't win a minute of that fucking fight. Not 1 minute. He didn't, like, he might have had decent exchanges. I'm not saying he looked terrible, but he didn't have a single minute where you went, he won that minute conclusively. Like, Usyk was constantly the better fighter. So the movement is something I think is going to be interesting, because if you are wanting to dethrone Alexander Usyk, you have to be able... I look at Parker as some of the similar traits that Usyk has, but not as dynamic, not quite as good, obviously. Yeah. Right now, he hasn't shown that. If he wins this fight, maybe we've got a question. But you're going to have to overcome him before you can even think about an Alexander Usyk, in my opinion.
Well, this is it. I think this is the problem when he's looking at Usyk. That's a classic sign to me that he is slightly overlooking him. And you could say he was made to do that, because we have seen in the past that Daniel Dubois, we know he's not the best talker, and, you know, I think he's trying to be more vocal.
He's getting better, isn't he?
He's definitely getting better. He's trying to put himself out there, and there's a good chance that, you know, we've seen that text message that he got once upon a time about a tweet, put this tweet out, and he left a bit at the start where, you know, it was the guy telling him this is what to put, and he left the full thing in there. So we clearly know that he's got someone behind him telling him to do certain things. Yeah. And I think someone had said, you know, get yourself in there, you know, you need to make yourself known.
Definitely.
That you're the main guy. So you can look at it in two ways, that he was just trying to, you know, promote himself and get the bigger fights after Parker. Then you can also say that he's overlooking him because of the, you know, the confidence he's gained from beating AJ. But it's so difficult when it comes to Daniel Dubois, because his mindset isn't like many fighters that we talk about. Because
we noticed that on the ring walk against AJ, there was a look of such confidence. And now that he's beaten AJ, you know, as much as we're saying it might be dangerous for him to overlook Parker, A confident fighter is a dangerous fighter, and I think we're getting the most dangerous version of Dubois now, where the power, the speed of this guy as an athlete has always been amazing.
Unbelievable.
But, and to be as fit as he is, but now to have the mentality right, and you know, technically he's definitely improving. We've seen against Hrgovic, took a lot of right hands early on, and we were thinking, all right, if you give AJ those same chances, you're going to be punished for it. He didn't, and that shows growth. And Don Charles is clearly working hard on him, mate.
Oh, absolutely. I think Don Charles has been absolutely great for him because, like you've just said, there's been certain parts of his game, being a young fighter, not fully physically developed, both physically and mentally. With Don Charles, I think he's installed that confidence into him, and then coupled with the wins he's got, the momentum, and I think right now he's at a stage in his career, he's got the youth on his side, he's got momentum on his side, he's got activity on his side. And just to go back to both guys, really the fact that if you look at their career, the way they've kind of turned it around, because both guys got beat off Joe Joyce, you know, and I was also looking at Joseph Parker's amateur record, and he's actually boxed Hrgovic in the past as well. He's the amount of names he's fought as an amateur, and he's clearly very experienced, both amateur and professional. I think he's even more experienced than Dubois in the amateur scene, so you can see he's got a great pedigree.
But the thing that sticks out for me is when you look at that, the defeats that they've both had, is styles make fights, in that, you know, they both lost to Joe Joyce, but Joe Joyce got demolished by Zhang, and yet Parker went and beat Zhang. So that tells you that anything can happen in this fight, and that we can't just be like, Daniel Dubois looked unbelievable against Anthony Joshua, therefore he wins this easily. No. I just don't want to say that. Like, we've got to really, you know, say those early rounds before we anoint Dubois as the new king, I think.
Yeah, I think the reason why we're going to get such a great fight is both guys have been so active. And I know Joseph Parker last year only fought once, but the previous year he fought 4 times. And we're now going into an era, thanks to Turkey, I'll shake that, we're getting more regular fights. These guys are fighting more often, and it shows in performances, because if we look at, you know, the Tyson Furies and people like that, he wasn't active enough. And I think someone like Tyson Fury, great fighter, but inactivity absolutely killed him. And then we've got Joseph Parker and Daniel Dubois, who've been so active, and the results are shown. So I think this fight's got to be absolute fireworks. I think I can't see this being a bad fight. I think the styles are going to gel. I think Daniel Dubois, I mean, is he ever going to be in a boring fight the way he attacks the fight? I mean, I've not seen him against anybody take his time. He goes in there and tries to take your head off. It's that simple.
I love watching Dubois fights. I absolutely love it. And Parker has had some good performances as well lately. But when you talk about entertainment, Dubois has been in some banger fights lately, so yeah. It's
been unbelievable. I think, like, with Andy Lee being in Joseph Parker's corner, the confidence he's gotten, you seen it in the face-off. I mean, he was really trying, wasn't he, Joseph Parker, to get something from
I loved it.
Daniel. But
it was a lot better than I expected.
Daniel was just, I'm not having it. He was just like, oh, just shut up. I mean, I love the back and forth, because I was a bit unsure going into it, because we know Daniel's not the most vocal, but it was great to watch, and it really got the juices going for me. And I feel as if this fight's going to be a case of experience in youth. I think that's going to be the battle, because we've got Joseph Parker with the more experience. But I think if he loses this fight, he's in trouble. So I think he really knows this is a big fight, and it means everything.
For both of them, because if you win, you're in there now for the undisputed, which, you know, is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Like, literally, we've had it once in 25 years, and now we're going to get it again only a couple of years after the last time. But if you do lose, you're kind of back to the drawing board. I wouldn't be surprised if the loser ends up fighting Anthony Joshua, because AJ is sort of scrambling around for a fight right now.
That's right.
Is it Deontay? I mean, it does make sense if you want to build AJ back up, but I think the loser could be in with AJ. And AJ has a win over Parker. You know, it wasn't a clear demolition. It was actually quite a close cagey fight, as you say. Parker is the defensively sound fighter, so he didn't get walked over. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, mate. I can't wait to see the fight. Yeah,
well, I think we'll leave it there. I think it's going to be an entertaining fight. I know that much, and I can't wait. But yeah, stay tuned. I will be doing a final prediction closer to the time. And thanks, Brian, for joining us. And
we're off to do a bit of sparring and get me a couple of black eyes. And we'll see you later.
See you on the next one.